Kenya is a country that's always fascinated me. It's one of the largest economies in sub-Saharan Africa and is home to a major African tech hub, its own version of Silicon Valley, called the Silicon Savannah. Observers say it is the most stable democracy in East and Central Africa, and Kenya's new president, William Ruto, is the country's self-proclaimed hustler-in-chief who pulled himself out of poverty. He went from selling chickens at a roadside stall to the highest office in his land. I talked to him when I was in Paris last week. President Ruto, welcome.
Thank you very much, Farid.
So you have had not a difficult but a dramatic ascension to the presidency. You ran against Kenyatta, to whom you were deputy president. He campaigned against you. You were running also against Raila Odinga, who was for many, many years the opposition leader. Narrow victory. The case goes to the Supreme Court. But everyone abided by the results. Years ago, there were almost riots. It was a similar situation between Kenyatta and Odinga. What do you think has changed in Kenya that people accepted the Supreme Court ruling?
Two things. Kenya is maturing as a democracy, and people have come to appreciate that we are a democracy and the people have the final say. Secondly, we ran a different campaign in this election. In 2022, we ran a campaign about issues. It was about housing. It was about jobs. It was about health. And I think it speaks to the maturity of the people of Kenya. It speaks to the maturity of our democracy. And it speaks to the fact that Kenyans want and have come of age to be able to identify an issue-based campaign and issue-based candidate.
So speaking of that maturity of Kenyan democracy, one of the most interesting and dramatic moments after the Russian invasion of Ukraine was the ambassador of Kenya to the United Nations saying, we denounce this, we believe the borders are important, otherwise all of Africa would be torn up. Do you think that there's an opportunity for Kenya to show leadership here?
As our ambassador said, we have in our continent communities on either sides of our borders. If we were to redraw the borders, we would have one hell of a challenge in our hands. It was decided against without our input. In fact, in Berlin, some good people sat down and drew lines all over the place and say this is going to be our nation. We've come to respect that. And I think as people who respect the UN Charter, and as people who believe in settling even when we have issues, we use peaceful means.
But you're not, are you changing the Kenyan government's position that you condemn, or do you condemn the Russian invasion of Ukraine?
We condemn war everywhere. We've been participating in peacekeeping worldwide.
But to say you're against war does not say, are you against the aggressor? I mean, you surely do not fault the Ukrainians for defending their country. That's also war. But there is an aggressor and a victim in this conflict.
You see, when a determination is made, I mean, when you in a situation of war, war is war. Everything happens in war, right?
But somebody starts the war.
So that is why it is necessary for us to use the instruments that we have to defend the charter that we all signed up to.
You are a chicken seller who has become a president. Now, in America, we are used to rags to riches stories, but in Kenya, for a long time, it didn't seem that that was possible. One family had dominated for a long time. Do you think that gives you a particular perspective on your role?
It does, in a very significant way. Because today, we are having a real conversation in Kenya, because I decided that we are going to change the development paradigm. We have deployed 30 billion Kenya shillings to support people who have no access to credit before, people who have no security. It has brought a new dimension into government, the realization that the bottom matters, that the people lower down can actually make a significant contribution, if not phenomenal contribution, to national development.
President Ruto, pleasure to have you on.
Thank you, Farid.